Welcome to Everything You Need to Know About the Ascension of Humanity, the podcast where ancient wisdom meets modern science and spiritual evolution gets real. I'm Heather, an energy healer, channel, and spiritual coach with Divine Ascension Company. Each week, we're diving deep into the mysteries of human consciousness, spiritual awakening, and the profound transformation happening within us and around us. But here's the thing. We're not doing this with our heads in the clouds. We're bringing neuroscience, psychology, quantum physics, and cutting-edge research to the table alongside meditation, energy work, and timeless spiritual teachings. Because the truth is, the ascension of humanity isn't some far-off cosmic event. It's happening right now in the choices we make, the awareness we cultivate, and the healing we do within ourselves. Whether you're curious about how mindfulness literally rewires your brain, why shadow work is backed by depth psychology, or what coherence between your heart and mind actually means scientifically, you're in the right place. We'll explore practices like breathwork, meditation, and emotional alchemy, not as abstract concepts, but as tangible tools grounded in both spiritual wisdom and scientific understanding. And here's where it gets even better. In our bonus episodes, you'll hear from real people sharing real stories. These are the warriors, the healers, the everyday seekers who've walked through their own darkness and found their light. They'll share their breakthroughs, their struggles, and the resources that actually help them along the way, because personal growth isn't a solo journey, and you deserve to know you're not alone. So whether you're just beginning to question the nature of reality, or you're deep in your spiritual practice, this podcast is your companion on the path. It's time to expand, to awaken, and to rise together. Let's begin. Hey, spiritual warriors, welcome back to another episode. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge something. If you're not familiar with autism, you might be wondering what this topic has to do with a spiritual awakening. The answer? Everything. Today, I'm talking with Nick about his experience as an autistic person who spent decades masking, hiding their authentic self to fit in, to seem normal, to avoid rejection. Masking is the constant, exhausting performance of being someone who you're not. It's monitoring every facial expression, forcing eye contact when it feels painful, suppressing your natural way of moving, speaking, existing. Studying neurotypical people like you're an anthropologist trying to decode an alien culture. And it costs everything. Your energy, your sense of self, your mental health. But here's why this matters in the context of spiritual growth. Unmasking, the process of finally allowing yourself to be authentically you, is one of the most profound spiritual acts there is. It's shadow work, it's inner child healing, it's radical self-acceptance, and it's releasing the shame that you've carried about who you are at your core. Nick's story is about the journey from performing to being, from hiding to revealing, from exhaustion to freedom. And whether or not you're autistic, I think you'll recognize yourself in parts of his story, because so many of us are masking in some way, hiding our sensitivity, our intuition, any of our spiritual gifts, our true selves. And the path to ascension requires us to take the mask off. Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Abby. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story?
Well, I am 43 years old. I am self-diagnosed autistic and ADHD at 42. And basically, one of the things that kind of stands out in my life recently is last year around near the end of the year, I went through a severe depression, and I was to the point of wanting to unalive myself, as they say nowadays, because I was just distraught. Confused, just when you feel that kind of depression, nothing makes sense. It's and as a logical thinker, the thing that scared me the most was there was no logic to it. There was no, thinking out of it. It was my body, keeping the score, as they say, telling me that you're not doing this right and we can't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And basically the reason for it is that I had been, I unearthed by doing some work on myself, by reaching out to, I put a message out on Facebook and I had some people respond, and I had some experiences. I started speaking more openly to people about what's really on my mind instead of just saying what I thought they wanted to hear or what they could take or whatever the case was. And I, started getting better. I think I started, feeling more like myself. And I realized that I had been unconsciously masking for 20 plus years because of the societal pressures to go along, to fit in, to be normal. And it was, it almost killed me.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that experience, I created my podcast, Autistic Pod, where I talk about, all of these things. I want to talk to people. I want to have people come on and talk about whatever is important to them. I want to talk to people about trauma. I want to talk to people about depression. I want to talk to people because when you voice these things, when you say them, when you get them out, when, these things that you're so afraid to say out loud, when you actually say them, you find that if you're in the right audience, okay, it's very important that you pick the right person, because if you say it to somebody that doesn't support you, or that is not uh there for you, then they can lead you down the wrong path. They can make you feel guilty, or they can say that, oh, you should, you're trauma dumping or whatever the case. There's so many phrases just to blame victims and to make people feel guilty for just being themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started my podcast to basically try to get society on a better path, because I can see how we are basically, and this is not even a Donald Trump thing or a Republican thing, or even before this, society has been walking down a path of just ruin,
Mm-hmm.
because we celebrate lies. We reward the person who can hide their feelings the best. And so those are the people that are going to succeed, are the people that are able to lie to your face. And that's not the world that I want to live
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with
in.
you.
Yeah.
So how the autism, so I hear we've all been hearing about autism for quite a while, and ADHD. It's becoming a more well-known concept, and people are starting to be a little bit more educated about it. But I'm starting recently to hear more about people who are talking about having both. And I know, like, I personally have ADHD, and I know that there are a lot of similar symptoms between the two. So how, in your personal experience, I also know that there's a wide spectrum of, autism as well. So in your life, before you were diagnosed, as you were trying to cope with these things, how did those diseases, if you will, these disorders affect your life?
Yeah. I'm not too worried about vocabulary words. You don't have to worry about that. I mean, basically, when I was a child, I was ostracized. I was kind of a troublemaker. I, always wanted attention. I actually diagnosed it recently on a podcast. I was talking to somebody, and we were talking about my childhood and my first memory of reading Green Eggs and Ham at the dining room table with my mom when I was 5 years old, because my dad didn't want my mom working while the kids were young, but where they went to school. I'm the youngest of three. So she always stayed home and she was always there. And then when I look at it, and I went to school, I was used to being the focus of attention. I was used to being, numero uno. Nobody else gets the focus but me during the day because my brothers were at school. And then I'm, competing with 20 plus kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I, uh, I was a troublemaker in school. I did some stupid things. I banged my head on my desk to try to get attention. Who knows how much damage I did to my brain with that? Uh, I, I was I can vividly remember. Now, one of the things with my ADHD is I have a horrible memory.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I can vividly remember something, it's a surprise. Because like when I go back to vacations or I go back to experiences, they're very, very vague. They're just very cut and dry, very just the meat and potatoes. I can't picture any specifics most of the time. So, but I can remember being as a child, I called myself the shoe eater. And I would grab children's shoes while they were on the playground and put them in my mouth to try to be funny and different and, to get attention.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but during school, I was bored. That's another concept that I have. I want education to teach not only IQ but EQ. We need to teach emotional quotient to our children just as much as their intelligence quotient.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah. So I have a list of rules that I go over on my podcast, and the first rule is to grow every day. And I think that this can be explained to fifth graders. This is give fourth or fifth graders once they've been through some things, once they've grown up through some classes, and once they've had a chance to learn the basics, you sit them down one day and you tell them, and this is just paraphrasing, but we exist because just like your mom and your dad, and we get all of these benefits. So we can have pizza, we can have chicken nuggets, we can have ice cream. Use hot and kid language. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is because of something called existence. And you guys may or may not be aware of this, and you might not want to use the word existence, but this is just a rough draft. But you explain to them, and now there are certain requirements for that existence. We have responsibilities for this great existence because, as we've learned from the animal kingdom, we learned about all the different animals. We learned about butterflies. We learned about ants. We learned about even bacteria, and they all have existence as well. And we as human beings have a great benefit to what we are able to do personally. We have the ability to blankety blankety blank. We can know what's right and wrong. We can accept it. We can do this, da 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 da. And so one of our requirements in our lives is we need to make sure that we are always growing ourselves. We are always becoming better people. Because think about back when you were a toddler, you can remember that. Some you may not. I'm talking to kids right now. And you can remember when you were in diapers. Now who here doesn't know how to wipe their bottom when they're done going to the bathroom? Nobody raises their hands, see? But all of you at one point didn't know how to do that. That's a perfect example of growing. And so what I want everybody to do is go home this weekend, write a story about, think about a time when you learned something, and don't use the bathroom example since we already did that. But think about something that you learned, or maybe a mistake you made. Maybe you fought with a friend, or maybe you bullied somebody, or took a toy, or blankety blank. So that's the idea behind that. I don't think it's that difficult. I think it would set children and adults up much more, just successfully. Mm-hmm. I think it would teach us the importance of holding ourselves accountable. is another one of my rules. You know, and I just don't think that people hold themselves accountable nowadays. They want everything for everyone else. They have rules for everyone else but themselves.
Right.
And that's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. So you're talking about these rules. What?
Question?
Yeah, no, yeah, it did. No, it's okay. I can totally relate. And I'm holding two fingers up right now just so that I remember the two questions that I want to ask you about because I totally get it. I understand. Um, First, so jumping back, you mentioned masking, the term masking. For people who don't know what that is, can you kind of explain what that term means and how it related to your experience?
Yeah. So again, it was, and I say unconscious, that's the most important word because I didn't realize that I was being a different person than my body and my brain wanted me to be, basically. That's what masking is. It's saying one thing to somebody, but thinking something else and believing something else. And so particularly, I don't know if it's because of, this is something that's argued in the autistic or neurodivergent community, that some neurodivergents have a higher sense of justice. I believe that. I don't think everybody does. Like you said, it is the spectrum. I think it's another one of the, tweaks that people get. And you definitely feel that. I'm always concerned about things being fair. I'm always concerned about the truth. I'm always concerned about honesty. And it's so ironic that for 20 plus years, I just wrote it off in my head that I couldn't be myself because I've been told so many times that I was quote unquote too much, or I was cold or rude or abrasive. And, I mean, yes, you can certainly be rude, but these were moments that I was not attempting to do that.
Right. Yeah, just being yourself.
I felt interpreted. Go ahead.
I said you were just being yourself.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, yes, I'm a little bit blunt. But I mean, it comes with the territory. I mean, that's part of autism is, for some people, is that we see things in just clear logic. I can talk about anything logically. I can talk about, the way I would handle, a loss of life, or I could talk about if my fiance of, almost 9 years, left me today, how devastating that would be. But I could talk about what my next steps would be, or because, and I also consider myself an empath in the way that I'm able to talk with people who are experiencing emotions and feel those emotions with them, and be able to comfort them and try to understand and help and bring them through what they're feeling. So it's a complicated thing, but I mean, it doesn't sound like it would make sense. And I talked to ADHD and autistic and neurodivergent people that are introverts and don't like talking, but they have a podcast as well. And that's also something that you wouldn't think, would be conducive. But then people like what they like and they don't like what they don't like, but they should be allowed to do what that would bring them joy without question or what's a good word, judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like there's just, and I hope this is an inaccurate statement, but it sounds like there's just not a lot of support for helping these people kind of learn to be themselves and accept who they are and allow them to thrive, right? Without being afraid of judgment.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty well known in the neurodivergent community that that society isn't made for neurodivergence. And there's a very interesting article. This is the fun one. because I'm going to be doing an interview in a few weeks with a woman named Elizabeth Halligan that I talked to, that I spoke to with on breast. But she wrote an article about how she believes that neurodent. She makes very good case of the very long articles. It's I can't remember the term for it, but thesis, perhaps. I think it was a thesis. But she posits that neurodivergence are evolution's way of of keeping the human uh, experiments going.
Hmm.
you know, because without without empathy, without uh, without caring about what happened to a stranger, an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind, basically. And we're not uh, netting justice out on people, or you're netting revenge, but it's the idea that I don't care what happens to you as long as I get mine. Well, what happens when the person next to you does that?
Hmm.
That's not a sustainable model for a successful existence.
Right.
And that's what neurodivergence say. Neurodivergence just, they just want to be. And we're taught from a very young age that we can't, because we don't fit in. Kids don't understand us. We're awkward. We're, introverted. There's a lot of different things that the neurodivergent present as, but it's very common to be bullied when you're young, and it's very common to, yeah, I don't know all the statistics and everything. I'm not a good one with that, but I know autistics and neurodivergents have a higher rate of suicide. Um, I know that's it's definitely a disability. There are people that argue that it's not, and that's great for them, but it disables you in the sense that it is a challenge for you to compete and exist in the society that we live in.
Hmm. That's really interesting because, so as I said, I have ADHD. My master's degree is in ABA, which is applied behavior analysis, which is working with kids with autism and behavior modification. And I've been on my spiritual journey for about 15 years. And I've been on my spiritual journey for about 15 years. And I, there's a quote I heard, and I don't even know if this was about neurodivergent people or not, but it said something about being built to live in a world, or sorry, existing in a world that you are not built to live in. The society that we have
Mhm.
today does not cater to neurodivergence. And I truly believe that even though some say that it's a disability, which it does disable you from doing certain things in the world we live in now, I truly believe that neurodivergence, because of the things that our brains are capable of doing, especially multiple things at once, we can focus on multiple things at once, we can process multiple things at once, we can look at things from a very different perspective than the average person. And I think that's a blessing, considering the world that we're kind of shifting into. And I think that the the way our brain works is more catered to spirituality, because to accept the fact that you are a multidimensional being and that you have all of these different facets to you, I feel like I'm able to click all those pieces into place much better because of the way my brain works. It does still pose challenges, especially in the day-to-day world, but I have found a way to make my brain work for me and not the other way around. And so
Mhm.
um, it's interesting to hear another person in the science field talk about something similar along those lines, because I think that neurodivergent people are beaten down so much, but honestly, like, embrace it, like, figure out how to make it work for you. And the people who are starting their podcasts and doing things that, like, most people would not expect them to do, that makes them happy. Like, that makes me really happy that people are doing that, because I think there should be more support. And I think the world is slowly, but definitely needs to change to kind of allow neurodivergent people to thrive. And like I said, and just succeed a lot better than they are.
No, I totally agree. I mean, you don't want to get political, but when you look at, RFK Jr. and some of the rhetoric that he has, and the ineptitude of the people that are supposed to be leading us, the fact that we elected, and well, we didn't elect, obviously, the fact that a person who doesn't know how the human body works makes all of our health decisions.
Right.
Is so inaccurate.
Well, hopefully that won't last forever.
He hasn't been to medical school.
No.
The doctors go to medical school for 8 years, and then they specialize in a certain thing because the human body is so complicated.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But this guy who was a lawyer who, just didn't like vaccines because he can make money off of it, has all the decisions on America's health. And he has, fired people without cause. Just Google it. It's insane. It's absolutely insane what's going on right now. And I think that is a catalyst for good and bad when it comes to neurodivergency, because, autistics right now feel like they're being attacked. Literally, the government is saying autism is bad. Autism is a disease that needs to be cured. If you're autistic, there's something wrong with you.
Right. Which is the completely wrong approach. I agree. So I want to go back to my second question. I still have my finger raised in the air. You mentioned a little bit ago about these rules that you made up that you talk about on your podcast. You don't have to go through all of them, but like, what made you decide to create this list of rules, and what are they rules for?
That's a great question, because I don't know. And that was one thing I wanted to say, and I'm glad you got me back there, because I didn't want to interrupt or anything, but while you were going over, but I don't remember what you said, but it reminded me that I was really nervous, before getting on this podcast, because I didn't know what I was going to say. I felt a little bit drained today, and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to do this right. I don't know if I'm going to make a mistake, or if I'm not going to come up the right way. And maybe I still am. I don't know. But the important thing, the point is that once I get into a real conversation where we're talking about important things, where we're not just, saying, oh, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Oh, I'm good. Great. So take care, to tell us, say hi to the kids. That's nothing. What's going on in your life? Anything important? Any problems? That's where I shine. That's where my brain and my feelings and my body just, are firing on all cylinders.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I feel the same way. And I've noticed the trend among neurodivergent people. We don't do small talk. We're not good at small talk. We don't want to have small talk. Let's talk about something important.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's have a deep conversation. Yeah. So,
to answer the question, the rules just came organically. I was just, because like I said, I'm trying to fix society, quote unquote, and get us on a better path. And so, it was just kind of just speaking out loud. I think I journaled a few of them, and I journal because I like write notes myself, like in my cell phone things, because if I don't get something down within 15 or 20 seconds, all right, I'm going to get into it. Yeah, it'll just gone. And I mean, let me tell you a quick story that really impacted me at the height of my depression, if I can.
Sure.
So, one of the people that reached out to me when I put out my Facebook message was my brother, my oldest brother, who, obviously was concerned with the with the verbiage that I used and everything, because it was very depressed and very forlorn and very don't know which way is up. Uh, so he invited me to a basketball game to see that tickets. And my immediate visceral reaction was, that sounds horrible. But something in my brain was like, listen, what you're doing is not working. You need to challenge yourself. You need to get yourself out of your comfort zone, and you need to do something different. So go to the basketball game with him. Maybe it won't be as bad as you think. Maybe you'll even have some fun. Because I do enjoy basketball, but sometimes my older brother and I don't really connect. He was, he is not as emotional as I am. He is a very structured and very literal, straightforward, it doesn't matter why the thing is, it just needs to get done,
Yeah.
For me, I want to ask, well, why does it need to get done? What's the reasoning behind it? What created it? Da, 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 da. So we don't always know. But it turns out that my brother couldn't make it, so he gave the tickets to my mom. So my mom came to pick me up, and I got into her car, and I just immediately started crying like a bitch. And so we had a few discussions. I don't even remember if she really knew that I was super depressed, but we talked. And long story short, we get to the basketball game. And I already told her, I was like, if the way I'm feeling, the emotions and everything, if I, start crying in the middle of the basketball game, I don't care. Yeah, as long as you're not put up, and I have a great mom. She's one of the best people I know. So she was, well, of course, the computer, I don't care. I just don't want you to be embarrassed. I was like, I couldn't. So as I was watching the game had started, I can remember vividly thinking, and instead of just having a thought, I verbalized it to my mom. I said, so here's something. When I watch this game and I look around at people watching the game, I feel like my brain and the way I'm watching the game is totally different than the majority of people here. So when I'm looking at people and I'm looking at the expressions on their face, I can just hear their inner monologue going, oh, look, this guy's bouncing the ball. He shot the ball. He missed the shot. Oh, but he got a rebound. Good job. My inner monologue for the last 20 seconds has been, oh, who's this guy? I wonder who backs him up. I wonder if the backup is better than the guy who starts. And I wonder where offense they're running. I wonder who the star player is. I wonder what the shooting percentage is. I wonder, and I'm just running through all of these things. And so I explained this to my mom, and she says, that sounds terrifying. And I started crying again, and I said, it is. And she reached over and gave me a hug, and I swear, for the first time in 42 years, I felt like my mom actually knew who her son was for the first time.
Wow.
She never realized, that my brain works differently. She never realized that, this was a key factor for me, understanding that my neurodivergent brain is literally practically a different species. When compared to a regular quote unquote neurotypical brain,
Right.
Not to say that it's smarter or more capable, but it just processes information differently, and it has different thoughts. It has a different thought pattern. And I've read, and I believe it's been proven that, on average, we have about 3 times the amount of thoughts that neurotypicals have, right? And that's because bring our synapses, and I'm sure you know better than me.
I heard I'm gonna have a squirrel moment here, but I heard a fact recently that really caught me off guard, because my brain is very similar to the way yours works. But I heard recently that the average or the majority of people don't have an inner monologue at all. Like, isn't that interesting?
Well, the way I hear it is when I think it's when you're reading, you don't hear somebody reading or something along those lines. I never really understood that. I didn't get it. That's not what I've seen people talk about it, and I honestly don't know which I am. Quite frankly.
There's words going on in my brain all the time, and whether I'm reading, I hear myself reading in my head, and like I have a friend who's autistic that I've been hanging out with lately, and trying to understand like and help him through coaching and stuff. And he was saying that he didn't have one. And I was like, well, what do you do when you read? Or like, do you have thoughts? And he thinks in pictures, which is amazing to me because I'm trying to learn to teach my brain how to do that. And he wants to learn how to think in words. And I'm like, why? Like, words are overrated. Like, enjoy your pictures, please. But it's just interesting how, as time goes by, even after my education is over, the more things just from talking to people and getting their experiences about how even among the neurodivergent community, our brains work differently. And it's just, I love the brain. The mind is fascinating to me. So it's just so interesting.
Yeah, no. We know so little about it. So what the hell? I mean, was that question?
Yeah.
Because there's so many things going on up there. I've read so many. It's just basically like jelly that runs the electronic impulses that go through it, the currents, everything that's involved in the brain to work still you mystifies science.
Yeah. Don't even get me started. Yeah. And it's fascinating.
But I think I was going to say something else, but I totally lost it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. I wanted to share that. I wanted to share that fact because it's just so interesting to me. But we were talking about your mom.
The facts, yes, about thinking your picture.
Yes.
So now get into so when you read, are you seeing the words in your head? Is that what you're saying? Or are you hearing your
So he's on the spiritual path as well, and he has this amazing ability to, I hope he doesn't mind that I'm talking about him, I won't say his name, but he has this amazing ability to bring in energy and filter energy and interpret the energy in pictures. But like when he processes thoughts, he uses that energy, that feeling, and creates this roadmap that's like connecting the dots to process information, which I just found this out like within the last couple of days, so I'm still trying to understand it better. But he doesn't hear anything when he reads, so I'm assuming that it's the same thing. It's kind of like he's feeling the energy behind the words and creating this roadmap of, processing all the things that are happening and how the things relate to each other and all the things. But when he's thinking, he thinks about, like he's trying to go through past memories and stuff right now, because it's also very common in the spiritual community and with neurodivergent people to have memory issues. So he's trying to go back and look at his past and memories and try to bring up memories. And when he's thinking about it, he thinks in pictures. And I was trying to help him understand a concept about having a conversation with someone who was arguing with him, who's got a lot of unhealed trauma and was projecting things onto him. And he's like, the logical side just started coming out, and he's trying to help her understand like what's going on with him and what's going on with her. And I was like, not everybody is receptive to that. I was like, let's try X, X, and Y instead. But I was like, when I was talking to you about that stuff in the car and you were like, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. I was like, how were you processing the information that I was telling you? Because normally you would listen, you would hear it, and you would think it out, right? And make it make sense. But he doesn't do it that way. And again, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how his brain, his particular brain works in that respect. But it's just something quite different from anything that I've ever heard before. So it's just another just fascinating thing about how the brain can work so different. But it's beautiful. Like, I wish I could think in pictures. I wish I could do these things.
It'd be the same. It'd be boring as hell.
I don't know.
Can you imagine if everybody was LeBron James, or no, everybody was, if everybody had this talent, then nobody would.
Right. No, absolutely.
And nobody would matter.
There would be no diversity. There would be no.
Why, you should, and this is one thing I always say as well. And I don't know if it appeals to most, if not all of the people as much as it does me, but because of my memory and because of the way I, forget things. I mean, literally, I couldn't tell you one thing I did yesterday right now, and I couldn't tell you one thing that happened last week, or I just went to, my fiance and I had been waiting to go to a concert, a music festival in Kentucky, big music festival, 40 music festival. I can barely, I can't remember. I remember what happened, but I don't remember any of the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
I can't picture, if I don't take a video of it, it's basically gone. It just happened. I can remember it happened. I can remember very vividly, like a few things, a few key points, but I hear people talk about how, oh, I had this smell and it took me back to this place and da-da-da-da-da. No, I've never had that happen once in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And well, the point was, because I lived like that, because everything is a race, I always try to devote myself to the moment this happening and be the best version of myself that I know how to be in that moment.
Which is another spiritual principle as well, being mindful and living in the present moment. And I totally agree with you. And then you don't have anything to worry about.
I mean, you just want to provide good things to the people around you.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I want to do in life. I want to reach through, the life right now, shake every person that had depression and say, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay that you have depression. It's okay. The reason that I expect many people struggle with these things all their life is because they're always ashamed of it.
Mm-hmm.
They're always ashamed, and they always listen to that bad voice. Trust me, I have it.
Mm-hmm.
I hate that voice. I have where to tell that voice, you're wrong. I proved it in December. You're wrong. I don't listen to you anymore. You can still keep me safe. You keep me from making really bad decisions. You have my intuition. Yeah, you have my fight or flight reflex, and I still need that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to listen to your negativity. I'm not going to let you tell me that the way I am is not acceptable, because I've worked on myself and I've recognized my weaknesses, and I always focus on growing every day.
Mm-hmm.
I've recently made a requirement to myself that I, read 2 chapters of a book every day. So I don't just waste the time and don't have anything, beneficial from it. You find the things that you don't, the only things that we have every morning when we get up is the opportunity to make a decision with the next second of our lives. Where I can say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go, when I'm done with this podcast, I'm going to go spend this time with my fiance. And if we were fighting or something, I would probably do that. But, she enjoys her time alone, so I'm not worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
But I have that choice. I chose to come on podcast today so that we could have the discussion, and I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. But I don't have to stay on any longer than I want to, and you don't have to keep me on any longer than you want to, because we always have that choice, regardless of what our brain tells us, regardless of how much we get down on ourselves, regardless of everything. We always have that next second to decide what we want to do.
Beautifully said.
And so all we got to do is just, when we have the energy, because again, neurodivergence, I'm speaking to neurodivergence directly, our energy is very limited.
Mm-hmm.
Our focus that we can put on something, unless it falls into that category of things that we hyper focus on, unless it's one of those things that I could do in my sleep, unless it's one of those things that there's never a bad time to do it. Watch good TV, movies, anime, I've always loved movies ever since I was growing up. I love movies so much more than anybody in my family. And when I get into a movie conversation or I get into a conversation about liking something or, when I really like in a video game, maybe 99 times out of 100, I always reach a point where the person is done with the conversation. And I'll continue on.
Yes.
And my conversation never gets done. I had many conversations about movies, and my family has a nice saying that they like to say to me that when they go to the movies, it doesn't always have to be a moving, beautiful experience, quote unquote. Sometimes you just want to be entertained.
Right.
And I get that, but that doesn't make the moving movies better and more to aspire to and more to talk about. And so I don't remember how we got on the stand, but yeah, that's the way it works. And this is what you see. This is what I try to showcase on Autistic Pod is this crazy ADHD minds that this is jumps from topic to topic. And sometimes it's entertaining. Sometimes I say really good things in my opinion. And sometimes I'm just fizzling out.
Right.
But I'm trying to be here, share my beliefs with society, because when I listen to them, I think they're pretty good, and I don't hear other people saying them. So, did you have another question?
No. I am glad that you're doing what you're doing, and I support you 100%. And I am going to listen to your podcast because, again, the brain is fascinating to me, and I'm interested in learning more about the differences, especially between autism and ADHD, and the similarities as well. But so to kind of bring this a little bit to a close, so we don't continue to get distracted, and this goes on for 4 hours.
Right.
Do you want to share any current projects that you're working on, or anything that you kind of want to share for people to check out?
Just the podcast, on Spotify. It's I'm trying. That's one of those ADHD things I haven't got it out to all the places where you can get podcasts. I've been trying to work on that. I've taken a few steps, but hopefully one day we'll get there. Right now we're on Spotify. It sounds silly, but it's not silly. That's ADHD. If you run into a hurdle, you try to jump, and if you hit the bar, you're out of the race. But that's how it is to me anyway. But I really don't have any projects. You did ask about the rules. If you want to go over the rules real quick.
Sure.
And
Go for it.
Okay. So as I said, the rule one is just grow every day. You should always be trying to be a better version of yourself than you were yesterday, because you have all the, this in front of you. I mean, we have these cell phones in front of us that can teach us amazing things. We can go on Harvard classes for free. So if that's something you want to do, it's there. So, grow every day, challenge yourself to become better emotionally, spiritually and medically, physically, all of these things. I believe in you love. You were born, you exist. Your job is to maximize your existence to your brain's benefits. And I was about to say something crazy and weird, so I'm not even going to say that.
Okay.
Next, personal accountability, as we discussed. And one of my guests specified that apparently you have to say compassionate accountability, because there is a difference.
There is. That's important.
Yeah. So I wasn't aware of that. And that was one thing I learned. But, you have to see your own behavior from a lens of compassion, is what compassionate accountability means. And so that means that you are asking yourself if you're holding yourself to the same thing as other people. Are you telling somebody that they can't do something, they can't attack this person or hit this person, and then are you going out and attacking people or hitting people? When you say, they say, or Elizabeth, you say that this person can't, I don't know. I can't think of any example, but it's
I think people understand the pain. Is that you have to practice what to preach.
Right.
All right. Label do not define a person. Actions do. Race, gender, sexual preference, political affiliation, neurotype, these are all simply pieces of a puzzle. Never generalize anyone unless you're recognizing their actions as shitty. And then you follow the next rule, which is one I'm very proud of. Distance yourself from violent, selfish, ignorant people. And then there's a caveat as well that says also never take anything they say to heart.
Yeah.
And because you see it online every day, you hear it in all these stories, you hear it in the broken families, and so unfortunately, violent, selfish, ignorant people are, in my view, lost until they are open. People are, in my view, lost until they are open to pain.
Yeah.
You can't solve ignorance. If you're talking to somebody who is ignorant, and I learned this, heavily from a 20+ year career in sales. You can talk to crazy people. I mean, you wouldn't believe what people will do. And when I was young, I would argue and tell this person is such a good deal because I believed it. I wasn't trying to sell them something they didn't want. I was talking to families who had never taken their kids to Disney. And I'm telling them how they saves money and they love it, but they just don't believe it. And so I split the credibility. And so as a young person, I'm trying to help this person. I get it on my paycheck, but I've always been a salesperson that's like, I want you to benefit from this. I'm not selling you the aluminum siding, that I could never do that because I value money over everything. Right. And that's why I've been a good salesperson, is because people trust me because they can hear when I speak to them, but I'm not bullshit.
Right.
I'm football. This naughty language.
That's okay. You're fine.
But yeah, that's, and then the other, be the change that you want to see in the world. Listen when others talk. Don't interrupt people unless you're participating. Obviously, me with ADHD, that's been very difficult to learn. And that was one that wasn't in there right away. I learned that from my fiance because she always told me that, I would interrupt her. I would explain to her because of my ADHD that she understands, but, then she'd go where she can't talk. So I'd made a concerted effort, when she is talking to only, and with a lot of people because of my ADHD. If I have to interrupt, I'll go, I'm sorry, can I interject real quick at the end of ADHD? And then just start into what I'm saying. I recognize that you have a direction you're going. I have something that I really think I want to say. And so if you could just give me like 5 seconds here, just a real quick second to drop this in, then we get right back to what you're saying. I just want to drop this stuff.
Yeah, that's a big one. I had the same issue, and I was recognizing, nobody really said anything to me about it, but I recognized that it was becoming a problem. So earlier I said I had my fingers raised to remember that I had something to say. So when people would, because by the time you're done with your thought, I'm going to completely forget what I wanted to say.
Exactly. Me too.
So I would hold my finger up, and as your neurodivergent brain at its greatest, as you're talking to me, I have my finger up to remind myself that I wanted to say something. So I'm repeating in my head what it is, like a keyword of what I want to say, and the finger is a visual.
Then you're half listening.
But I'm able to listen fully, and
the idea.
Yeah.
So there you
And so I got a light bulb tattooed on the side of my finger because I would always be holding my finger up, and people are like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I have something to say, but I don't want to interrupt."
I remember Sammy Jenkins tattooed. If you've ever seen the movie Memento,
I love that movie. It's a good one. Talk about memories.
I ever the tattooed. That's the only tattoo I have.
Nice. Yeah, my little light bulb is my favorite, but I like the story behind it. But anyway, I interjected, so please continue.
Oh no, you're fine.
Just there's only a few, but worry about what you can control. That's such a huge one. Worrying about things out of your control, which includes your brain. Your brain is out of your control. if you literally have a neurological condition or something that is nature, not nurture, it's literally your brain that is causing this problem, whether it be depression, anxiety, autism, ADHD, whatever. You have to learn to deal with this and accept the things that are out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hate yourself for things that you can't control.
Or worry excessively.
Yourself for getting sick. Why? You didn't get it unless it was something that you did wrong, unless you could have taken better care of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But, just worry about the things that you can control. If you spill a bottle of milk, you don't cry over it. You just say, well, the milk was due to spill then. The clumsy hands, let's clean it up. And then I guess I got to go get some more milk. Now I have to do a new thing that I wasn't going to do because I made a mistake. But I'm human. Mistakes happen. So we're going to move on.
Yep. Moving forward.
Yep. Worry about what you can control. And then don't be afraid to fail. Failure's the best teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who disagrees isn't following rule number 1. Because if you try to grow, you're going to fail. So many times, every day, even if you grow, you're going to fail. But if you don't try anything and you don't fail, now there's no growth.
Right.
So
exactly.
That's why it's so important. So don't be afraid to fail. And then after that, you could just live your life. Don't, you're keeping selfish, angry people away from you. You're listening to people. You're working on yourself. You're taking chances out in the world. So now you get to enjoy the benefits. Do what you want to do. What means the most to you? Mm-hmm. Do you want to have a fleet of drones? Yeah, well, work hard. Get your fleet of drones. Mm-hmm. And fly them around. And but for me, it's spending time with my fiance, at metal festivals, podcasting, conversation, eating good food and drink. Movies, TV. Really good stuff. I can, I do want to make a little recommendation. I'm going to say this on our podcast as well. But like I said, I love movies and TV. I love recommending like good under the radar stuff.
Okay.
There's a show on Hulu called The Lowdown with Ethan Hawke. That's great. Awesome. It's a very unique show. It's very adult. There's, F-bombs and there's lots of violence. And so, viewer discretion is advised, but it's a really fun story. It's really great characters, and it's topical now. They're getting into, and this is what I feel, but they're getting into how, and there's no other way to say this, how the Nazism and the alt-rights have rebranded themselves to seem more normal, to be preachers and to be these people that are supposed to be people that you can trust. They're simply manipulating the world through the word of God that likes their best.
Wow.
And that's what they talk about. That's what they show on that. That's a little ahead, but it doesn't spoil anything.
Gotcha.
That's an episode that came on today. Is they're really diving into this, and it's so topical and it's so important for the moments to see that, because it makes so much sense.
Yeah. And it's,
a lot of this, they're literally called the Heritage Foundation. And when you hear these people talk, you're just a well-dressed Nazi.
Wow. Yeah. And it's interesting because a lot of movies and TV have truth in them, right? Truth that isn't said outright, but truth that like people, the general public, most people, I would like to believe, can see through that and hopefully correlate that to what's happening in the world and be like, oh, yeah, this isn't right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. No, but they're not. There's so many people out there that are just, and that's why I created my rule, because it's a tough time out there right now, man. Mm-hmm. Especially for neurodivergent, especially for empaths. Mm-hmm. If you take it in this stuff, if you look at the government too much right now, they're going to go insane.
Yeah.
Because it is not free out there. Mm-hmm. But we also have to remember on our logical side that, we see everything. Mm-hmm. All of this always what's happening is unprecedented. But there were always government things that people were complaining about. That there's always a thing of the moments. But we weren't bombarded with it as much when we were younger because of social media. And now with social media, it's just when somebody talks. Right. So it's anything is news, and anybody can break news, and anybody can say something that sounds good, and it doesn't matter if it's true.
Yeah.
But that's that. The point of that was I can remember where I was going. As I'm saying, I think I lost it. I almost had it. I was just saying. Oh God, what was the point of you're talking about
the TV
Foundation? Oh, I believe I said the point. I was just kind of trying to clarify it more. But yeah, I'm probably going to lose that thought. So
Okay, no worries.
You'll hear that a lot on the podcast. But I really loved this conversation. I felt very at home. I hope I said interesting things for people. That's the weird thing is that when you just push record, you don't know why, if people are going to listen, why they're going to listen, and especially if you're just kind of throwing stuff at them, saying, "Hey, what do you think?" Because I know that most people don't do this and say this. So, is this interesting? Does this have value? And let's chat. I want to talk more with the world. I want to figure out what's going on with everybody. I want to talk about unprocessed trauma, how it affects every single person in the world. When we're growing up as children, we're affected with the traumas that are put in our little kitty brain. It doesn't matter how good your parent is. At some point, you learned that it's not okay to be innocent in a child, and that should never be taught.
Right.
That's trauma. We are all simply the same children that we always were, but we became adults because we were told we had to.
Right.
Instead of wanting to play with our neighbor next door. Instead of wanting to be outgoing and full of wonder and always questioning things and knowing, you can remember as a child, what's this? What's this? What's this? You always wanted to know things.
Yeah, my mom, Nessie and Pat, I would ask her why. And
I felt like I had to punctuate that. We're not smart. We know less. Every human being that's ever existed knows less than they didn't know. Yeah, we always don't know more than we know.
Right.
For all time, because there is so much to know. Because every single person has a story. Because every single person is a piece to the puzzle of existence. And that's what my podcast is about.
Gotcha.
That's the goal of my podcast, is to just talk to people and see where we go. But I want to talk about these important things about, making our lives better and just pacing ourselves and making it, feasible for anybody. My podcast is not, trying to just talk about one thing, and anybody's welcome. This is really weird. My guest on Friday for my podcast this week, guy reached out to me, he's apparently a gay Trump supporter. He went to prison and wrote a book.
Wow.
This is going to be the first time I've ever had somebody who doesn't have the understanding of what my podcast is. I sent him the thing, but I don't know what to expect from the stuff.
Not at the intro.
I'm very interested to try to have a conversation with him. I'm going to ask the tough questions. I'm going to ask, you say you're a Trump supporter, you say you're gay, you told me your experience, and I'm assuming it's going to be like liberal bashing. He was unsafe in prison because he was a Trump supporter and they singled him out or whatever. I don't know. But that's my first assumption, and you shouldn't say that, but I'm autistic. So that's what I feel. I have a filter, but I have the filter for things that are just, I don't know, obvious. And they're the level to me. And sometimes the obvious level goes past. So I realized that, I probably shouldn't have said that, but that's just my honest deal. But I would treat him the exact way that I would treat any other guest. And I will give him a chance to say his piece. And then I will ask him, questions from my vote. That supporting Trump and being gay is a very weird combination because, he doesn't support you.
Right. Well,
Wow.
good luck with that.
That was, yeah. I'm sorry. I know I've talked about 95% of this podcast that you're like,
It's okay.
like I said, I hope it's been what you, I hope it's been an interesting conversation for
It's
everybody who.
been exactly the way it was supposed to be, and I have enjoyed it very much.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, that's all I needed to hear.
Yes, and I'm sure everyone else out there will enjoy it just as much, even if it's just for pure entertainment.
There you go. Absolutely. So anybody who hasn't heard of me, Autistic Pod, come watch my crazy podcast where we may solve society problems, or where you just watch an autistic and ADHD guy, entertain you by his weird antics.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really did enjoy this conversation. I could have rambled on for hours about all the things that we talked about, but I don't want to do that to people. So thank you so much. And I am excited for people to hear this and learn more about your story and autism and all of the, things that the world is going through. We need more support. We need more understanding. And I hope that this episode can at least do that a little bit.
That was a wonderful ending. I couldn't stop that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you, Heather. It's been a pleasure.